My name is Jason Chrapek. I'm a clinical assistant professor here in the kinesiology department at Purdue University. So peaking refers to a phase within the overall development of an athlete leading up to competition. So we often think of peaking as the last 3 to 4 weeks, but really it starts on day one of the overall training block, which can be usually up to about a year leading up to something like the Olympics. When you're peaking, you're trying to squeeze that last little bit of juice out of the orange, so to speak, to maximize performance. The higher level of athlete, the smaller differences there is between pre-peaking and post. So it may only be a 1% or less difference in performance, but at the highest levels, that could be the difference between winning a gold medal and not even making the final heat. Or if you are trying to qualify for the Olympics. So you'll have multiple peaking phases throughout a training system or a training program to be able to make the team. And then you may go through another peaking phase when it comes closer to the competition. So even though the difference on an individual level is small, the difference between first place and 10th place at that level is so unbelievably small that you're trying to find that 0.1% improvement to get them to where they want to be. As far as being at your best leading up to an event, especially something as important as a playoffs or the Olympics, there's a whole bunch of different techniques that are used. I tell my students all the time that exercise science is just as much of an art as it is a science. So there's not one cookie cutter way to go about it because there's individual differences, whether you're working with a younger athlete or maybe an older, more veteran athlete that maybe has some dings and dents along the way through their career. You're going to take different approaches with each athlete. It all comes back to we're trying to maximize both the physiological and psychological preparation. At the same time, within their sport, they're maximizing their more kind of tactical approach to it. So we're trying to marry those things up to hopefully be at peak when it really does matter. On the mental side of things, it's huge. So obviously, when we're in the weight room, we're trying to make muscles stronger, the heart work more efficiently, improve the physical performance, but we have to focus on that psychological. And those aren't really two separate things. There's a big overlap. If an athlete is more physically prepared, they're not going into a competition with doubts about their own physical abilities, chances are mentally they're going to be in a pretty good spot as well. So in general, it's kind of assumed that you can maintain a peak for about 1 to 2 weeks. So after you've gone through your peaking phase, you've tapered and recovered and you're ready for competition, you don't lose it in 12 hours. Now there's going to be little ebbs and flows based on mental preparation, fatigue, how hydrated they are, their nutrition, and of course that mental game also comes into play as well. I use the example, if you watch a UFC fight, you might see one fighter who is really amped up, ready to rock and roll, they're loud, while their opponent is nice and stoic and calm. What's best for one may not be best for the other. So that's where coaches, knowing their athletes, knowing what makes them tick, can hopefully get them closer to that theoretical peak. I think every athlete, especially high-level athletes, are hyper-competitive. So a lot of times from a strength coach perspective, you're going to push them really hard in training, but there's also a time to say, hey, slow down a little bit, because they're going to push maybe too much and end up decreasing their performance. So that's where the art of coaching comes along, where you have to manage that stress and fatigue so that you're going into the competition at your absolute best.